This is why most parents fail at school drop-off, and their kids cry every day. Every morning, the same scene plays out at school gates around the world. A parent tries to leave. A child screams. The parent feels like a monster, and somewhere in that chaos, a well-meaning teacher says, "Just go. They will be fine once you leave." But you walk away with your heart in pieces, wondering what you are doing wrong. Here is the truth no one tells you. Your child is not manipulating you. They are not too clingy. They are not spoiled or overdependent or emotionally weak. Their brain is literally doing exactly what it is supposed to do. And once you understand why, everything changes. I am a child psychologist. I have worked with hundreds of families struggling with this exact problem. And today, I am going to show you the real reason most parents fail at school drop-off. The 3 types of separation anxiety you have never heard of. The mistakes you are probably making without realizing it. And finally, a 5-step protocol that actually works. I call it the brave goodbye. Stay with me. This might be the most important parenting video you watch this year. Part 2. The science behind separation anxiety. Let us start with what is actually happening in your child's brain. Because once you see this, you will never look at drop-off the same way again. Deep inside the brain, there's a small almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. Think of it as your brain's alarm system. Its job is simple: detect danger, sound the alarm, keep you alive. Here is the problem. In young children, the amygdala is fully developed and working overtime. But the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that thinks logically and calms things down, is still under construction. It will not be fully developed until your child is in their mid-20s. So what happens at school drop-off? Your child's alarm system sees you walking away. It screams, "Danger, danger. Primary caregiver leaving. Survival threat detected." And there is no logical brain to say, "Relax. Mom is coming back at 3 o'clock. Everything is fine." The alarm just keeps blaring. That crying, screaming, clinging child, that is not bad behavior. That is a survival response. Their brain genuinely believes they are in danger, and it is doing everything it can to keep them close to you. Now, here is where it gets interesting. Children also have something called neuroception. This is the brain's ability to scan the environment and determine whether it is safe or dangerous. And it happens completely below conscious awareness. Your child is not choosing to feel scared. Their nervous system is detecting threat and responding automatically. This is biology, not manipulation. And the sooner we accept this, the sooner we can actually help them. Part 3. Age-by-age breakdown. Now let us talk about what is normal and what is concerning at each age. Because this is where most parents get confused. 6 to 12 months. Separation anxiety typically begins during this window. Your baby suddenly cries when you leave the room. They become clingy and want to be held constantly. They may reject other caregivers they previously accepted. This is completely normal. It is actually a sign of healthy cognitive development. Your baby now understands that you exist even when they cannot see you. They just have not learned yet that you will come back. 1 to 3 years. This is the peak period. Separation anxiety is often at its most intense. Your toddler may have full meltdowns at drop-off. They may cry for extended periods. They may regress in other areas like sleep or toilet training, still within normal range. This is hard, but it is developmentally appropriate. 3 to 5 years. Most children start to manage separations better during this stage. They understand routines. They can anticipate your return. They are developing coping skills. However, starting preschool or kindergarten can trigger a temporary spike. New environment, new people, new rules. The anxiety makes sense. 6 years and older. By this age, most children can handle school drop-off without significant distress. Brief moments of sadness are normal, especially after weekends or holidays. But if your school-age child is still having intense, prolonged meltdowns every single day, This is a red flag. This goes beyond typical separation anxiety and may indicate an anxiety disorder that needs professional support. Here is the key question to ask yourself. Is my child eventually able to calm down and engage with their day? If yes, you are likely dealing with normal separation anxiety. If no, if they remain distressed for hours, if it is getting worse instead of better, if it is affecting their ability to function, seek help. Part 4. The 3 types of separation anxiety. Most people think separation anxiety is just one thing. It is not. There are actually 3 distinct types, and understanding which type your child has changes everything about how you respond. Type 1. Developmental separation anxiety. This is the normal, expected kind we have been discussing. It appears at predictable ages. It decreases over time. It responds well to consistent reassurance and routine. Think of it as a phase your child grows through. Type 2. Situational separation anxiety. This is triggered by specific circumstances. A new school, a new caregiver, moving to a new house, parents divorcing, a traumatic event, the birth of a sibling. The child was fine before, but something changed, and now they are struggling. This type requires addressing the underlying situation, not just the anxiety itself. Type 3. Clinical separation anxiety disorder. This is when normal anxiety crosses into disorder territory. The fear is excessive and persistent. It lasts longer than 4 weeks. It significantly impairs daily functioning. It may include physical symptoms, like headaches and stomach aches. It does not respond to typical reassurance strategies. This type requires professional intervention, therapy, possibly medication, and specialized support. Here is why this matters. If you treat type 3 like type 1, you will fail. If you treat type 1 like type 3, you will over-pathologize normal development. Knowing which type you are dealing with is the first step to solving the problem. Part 5. What makes it worse? Now for the hard part. The things parents do that accidentally make separation anxiety worse. I am not saying this to blame you. You are doing your best with the information you have. But knowledge is power, and this knowledge could change your mornings forever. Mistake 1. The long goodbye. You think you are helping by staying longer. One more hug, one more kiss. Let me just wait until you calm down. But here is what your child's brain hears. Mom is not leaving. Mom seems worried. Maybe there is something to be afraid of here. Long goodbyes increase anxiety every single time. Mistake 2. Sneaking away. The opposite extreme. You wait until your child is distracted and slip out the door. This teaches your child that you could vanish at any moment without warning. It destroys trust. It makes them more vigilant, more clingy, more anxious. You might avoid 1 meltdown, but you create 10 more. Mistake 3. Showing your own anxiety. Children are emotional detectives. They read your face, your voice, your body language with incredible accuracy. If you look worried, they will be worried. If you hesitate at the door, they sense something is wrong. If you cry after you leave, they often know somehow. Your anxiety becomes their anxiety. Mistake 4. Bribing or negotiating. If you stop crying, I will buy you a toy. Just 1 more day and then we can skip school. This teaches your child that their distress is a bargaining chip and that the situation is so bad it requires compensation. It also reinforces the crying behavior. Mistake 5. Dismissing their feelings. There's nothing to be scared of. You are being silly. Big kids, do not cry. Your child is not choosing to feel scared. Telling them their feelings are wrong does not make the feelings go away. It just teaches them to hide their emotions from you. These 5 mistakes come from a place of love, but they all make the problem worse. Now, let me show you what actually works. Part 6. The 5-step Brave Goodbye Protocol. This is the system I have developed over 15 years of clinical practice. It works, but only if you follow all 5 steps consistently. Step 1. Prepare the night before. Talk to your child about tomorrow's schedule, what will happen, who they will see, what fun activities are planned. Use simple, positive language. This reduces the element of surprise. When children know what to expect, their anxiety decreases. Step 2. Create a goodbye ritual. This is crucial. Design a specific, brief, repeatable routine that you do every single drop-off. Maybe it is 2 hugs, 1 kiss, and a special phrase. Maybe it is a secret handshake. Maybe it is drawing a heart on their hand that they can look at when they miss you. The ritual should take no more than 30 seconds. This gives your child something to focus on, something predictable, something that signals you will return, because you always do this. Step 3. State your return clearly. Do not say, "I will be back soon." That means nothing to a child. Say, "I will pick you up right after nap time." Say, when the big hand points to the 3, "I will be at the gate." Give them a concrete marker they can understand and anticipate. Step 4. Leave with confidence. This is the hardest part. After your ritual, after stating when you will return, you leave immediately, without looking back. Smile, stand tall, walk with purpose. Even if your child is crying, even if your heart is breaking, your confident departure sends a powerful message. This place is safe. You can handle this. I believe in you. Hesitation sends the opposite message. Step 5. Validate and celebrate at pickup. When you return, acknowledge what they did. You did it. You were brave today. I am so proud of you. If they had a hard morning, do not dwell on it. I know this morning was tough, but you got through it. That is what matters. This builds their confidence for the next day. Repeat this protocol every single day. Consistency is everything. Your child's brain needs to learn through repeated experience that you leave and you always come back. There are no shortcuts, but it works. Part 7. Final message. I want to leave you with this. School drop-off is one of the hardest things parents do. Not because it is complicated, but because it requires you to do something that feels completely unnatural. Walk away from your crying child. Everything in your body screams to stay, to comfort, to fix it. But sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is leave, because staying teaches them they cannot cope without you, and leaving teaches them they can. Your child is not broken. Your child is not too sensitive. Your child is not going to be traumatized by going to school. Your child is learning one of the most important skills a human being can develop: the ability to feel afraid and do hard things anyway. And you are teaching them that. Even when it does not feel like it. Even when they cry. Even when you cry too. You are building a brave human being, one goodbye at a time. Part 8. Call to action. If this video helped you see school drop-off in a new light, share it with another parent who is struggling. We are all in this together. Drop a comment below telling me your biggest drop-off challenge. I read every single one, and I will try to respond with specific advice. And if you want more content like this, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Because next week, I am going to show you exactly what to say when your child cries and screams, "Do not leave me." Word for word, scripts that actually work. You do not want to miss it. See you then.